Hello, friends. It's good to be back. And Jayanth, good to see you also, viewers and listeners. As you would remember, last week, Jayanth had gone on a Europe trip and he's going to tell us a little more about it in a bit. But before that, we have with us a special guest, Tathagato Rai Dastidar, who's better known as Tatha. He's the CEO and chairperson of SigTuple. He's a PhD in computer science from IIT Kharagpur, holds 11 US patents. I hope I got that number right, Tata. Yeah, and around those US patents, six as a primary author. He's a pretty accomplished man. And he started his career in 2000 at National Semiconductor building software for semiconductor design automation. It's interesting because this kind of background and what he does currently, of course, he has held leadership positions in premier tech companies like Yahoo, American Express, Grace Note, etc. And in 2015, he co-founded SigTuple, and the goal was of applying AI and computer vision, AI and robotics to the healthcare domain. And the aim is basically to assist, pathologists in the microscopy work, thereby making their lives easier, ultimately improving patient outcomes. So that, in short, is what Tata does. And of course, welcome to this podcast, Tata.
Thank you, Leslie. Great to be here.
Of course, Tata, before we come to SigTuple, a little about what's happening around the world, because our viewers and listeners are used to a different kind of format over here where we speak about like how, AI agents are coming into their own, because Salesforce released AgentForce on 16 September. It's a
Right.
suite of, autonomous AI agents. And as we all know that AI agents, basically they exhibit characteristics like autonomy, adaptability, decision making, learning, etc. Slack is already, using it. So Slack has about 32 million daily users, and they've already introduced Salesforce's AgentForce AI, and which is now capable of answering queries, automating tasks, and performing, actions directly within Slack channels. Of course, along with that, we have two, three other developments. So Microsoft has given us an enhanced Copilot. It's just saying Copilot is the new UI for AI. I like the buzzword, the user interface for AI. And of course, I think last week also we spoke about it that OpenAI has into it. We were all expecting Strawberry to be out of the OpenAI works, and now we found that the name is now the series of models is being called OpenAI O1.
Oh, wow.
Of course, they are saying that it's going to reason like humans. The question that I would like to put to both, I don't believe that it reasons like human, but I would love an expert like Tatha to weigh in. And of course, Jayanth, we have been talking about it for long. Tatha,
Right.
quick things. Can AI models really reason the way humans reason? It's a little tricky question, I know that.
Yes, the answer to it would be another question, probably, Leslie. Is that do we really know how humans reason?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
If we can't define consciousness or the reasoning process very well, how do we know that whether the AI can mimic us or not? But that said, obviously, AI kind of simulates it. And I believe that capability to simulate the human reasoning should get better over time as we learn more and as we experiment more with models.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's a very nice way of putting it, because the point is that these models are getting, they're advancing in their
Definitely.
understanding contextual thing. Jayant, a quick
I
thoughts on all these developments.
yeah, no, I'd like
And a
to.
little, I think you want to tell our viewers, and you're itching to tell our viewers and listeners about your Europe trip. So let's get the context out there.
I've had great conversations there, so I'll get into that. But talking about machines' ability to reason, right? I agree with Tata that do we first of all know how humans reason? So I think what the development of AI into reasoning is getting to what I would like to call as objective reasoning, right? Anything that that maths or mathematical or analytical based reasoning that can be done, that's fairly straightforward. I think those machines are will be able to will be able to do that? We don't know. Like just like ChatGPT being the first generative AI LLM, and in the initial days had its own teething troubles. I think in the initial days, 01 also will have its teething troubles, teething problems. But there are enough and more reasoning LLMs that are being developed. Gemini Pro is one of them. A whole bunch of other companies are developing. So eventually, the ecosystem will get there, but it would be limited to objective reasoning. Again, like, will the machines be able to reason like humans? The question that Tata puts, the subjective reasoning, wherein a lot of, emotions and irrationality based, reasoning comes in, that I don't think machines can ever get. I mean, not ever, but can get there anytime soon.
But you'll remember that oft quoted the one which I quote often, Marvin Minsky.
Almost every episode.
Exactly, yeah. Because it is time and again it warrants that kind of discussion because it tempers the expectation, and each
True.
and every time it reminds that even one of the founding fathers of AI, Marvin Minsky, would say that, okay, I'm not really perturbed by the fact that if machines become as smart or even smarter than human, because if they start reasoning or thinking like humans, then they'll be as confused as humans are. So
True.
it's I guess in the final run, it's just okay. But why don't you tell viewers and listeners a bit about the Europe trip? And
Yeah, so I'd been to Europe for a week across Malta and Portugal, and I've had some great, meetings and discussions, including one of our former podcast guests, Ms. Josiane Kutayar, who's a former Minister of European Parliament. She was part of EU AI Act. I had dinner with her. I met the CEO of one of the government agencies, who himself has done his PhD in data analytics. Okay, and he uses AI models. He's got 2 patents developing AI solutions. And I also met a very capable and motivated technical project manager. So my takeaway from Europe is that in terms of AI innovation, Europe is stifled, right? It's extremely fragmented, and even some of the entrepreneurial enterprising people that I have met are struggling in terms of scaling their solutions across their little countries, because every other country has different regulations. For example, in Portugal, okay, you cannot sell Meta Ray-Ban glasses. Okay, people can't even have dash cams apparently because of GDPR issues. Whereas in Spain, you can do that. So last week I was having lunch with our senior producer of our podcast. She just returned from US picking up a Meta AI glasses, and she was showing it off how cool they are. And I was there in Portugal trying to pick up Ray-Bans for myself, and they can't sell it there. So different countries have different issues. And when it comes to AI innovation, people are hungry to innovate there, but people are finding it extremely difficult to scale, even small businesses or small startups there. And they're all looking towards Dubai, because Dubai is opening up a lot of with open arms, people coming in. I've had a meeting with the CEO of AI investments of Dubai, and he and his entire team was in India 2 weeks back, and they are, opening up their arms and accepting anyone and everyone from around the world, especially more Indians, to set up AI startups and do AI innovation there. So even Europeans are looking at Dubai.
Interesting that you say that, because on the one hand, clearly, there's always that tussle between innovation and regulation.
Right.
And my only concern around this is that trying to regulate or over-regulate in some cases, hope we don't create islands of tech prosperity, because
Yeah.
that could, actually increase the digital divide. Of course, that enters into the field of geopolitics. It enters into policy making frameworks, etc., a little outside the scope of what we are going to discuss at this point in time. But viewers and listeners, today also we are going to speak about a very important area, which
Yeah.
I think very close to the heart, very close to Jayan's heart also, and everybody's, in fact, because it involves our lives, and that is AI and healthcare. Now,
Right.
in this specific example where we talk about SigTuple, I mean, I've had this conversation with Tata earlier also. He explained it in a very simple terms. He said, if you walk into a clinical laboratory, a diagnostic laboratory, you find that the thought that comes to it that most of the processes are automated. But he
Right.
corrected me there. He said, no, the process is automated for normal or near normal samples, not for disease samples. Because for disease samples, you require a qualified person to review the sample with the help of a microscope. They could be abnormal blood sample, they could be urine samples, they could be tissue samples, so many other things, which I think Tata will explain in a bit. But the point is that, you do not have as many qualified people who are pathologists
Right.
because, and they are in short supply, and it's not only everywhere in the world, in India also. He gave me some stats saying that more than 95% of laboratories across the world would have no automation for this step. And this is exactly what the gap that SigTuple is trying to
Rich.
plug. Tata, I think let's get it from the horse's mouth. Let's hear how what exactly is the problem and how you're trying to solve it say
Right.
quickly as
So I
such.
think you did a great job of explaining the problem, Leslie. So
And
I
that's
have very
because we had a
little
chat earlier.
so I have very little left to add to it. But just to tell you is that it's, I mean, the irony of the situation is that with all this automation that exists today, people who don't need their reports in 2 hours get their reports in 2 hours, whereas a chemotherapy patient or a cancer patient who's eagerly awaiting the report of their diagnosis or their prognosis or how their disease is progressing, they will have to wait for the availability of the pathologist and their workload to get their reports. So that is the problem that we are trying to solve. And I'm not even getting into the point of how do remote patients get diagnosed at all and all that. So the way we are solving it is essentially there are two pieces to it. One is the microscope, the other is the pathologist's brain.
Oh, so the hardware and software
The
combined.
Yeah.
hardware and the software. The hardware today is manual, analog. We are trying to digitize it with the help of a robotic microscope, which can, AI-driven robotic microscope, which can take in the sample and image relevant areas of it with the help of a microscopic lens and a camera. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying the problem. There's lots of the devil lies in the detail, but that's the general idea. So, given a physical sample on a glass slide, what you get out of our machine is a set of images which represents of the sample. And then there is an AI layer which will kind of analyze those images and mimic what the pathologist would have done had she looked at the sample with the microscope. It will identify the different types of cells, which is normal, which is abnormal, and how many of those abnormals are there, and so on and so forth. And finally, the result of this analysis, we present it to the pathologist on a web browser, anywhere, anytime, which basically means that the pathologist can access the reports from anywhere. Remote patients can also get the help of a high quality pathologist. And since the AI kind of automates most of the task of the pathologist, the review time per sample comes down drastically, which means that the pathologist who can probably cater to, say, 50 samples or 100 samples a day, now they can do 300 or 500.
Understood. So
So
this is, go on, sorry.
yeah, so basically we are solving for the inaccessibility part, the efficiency part. And since AI does not get tired, AI actually can look at a large area of each sample, it is also more sensitive in catching those rarer abnormalities compared to a human. So we kind of help in the patient outcome as well. Go
So
ahead.
this is AI powered pathologist digital twin or
Yes.
pathologist
Yes.
digital twin. So
Right.
increasing the, I mean, that's exactly what we are seeing in radiology, which is out and
Yes.
yeah, I mean, AI use in radiology is more prevalent in the medical sector right now.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
so
there's a reason for it because in radiology, the data, the
right,
images
right,
are digitals to start with.
yes,
You no longer have film X-rays anymore.
anymore, right,
CTs, MRIs are all digital. So
true,
it is, I mean, easier to start off building the model, and
right,
it is easier for adoption as well because somebody who has an MRI can put the AI as an add-on.
right, right.
But in case of pathology, even the hardware is analog. So that's why you have to start from a step behind.
digitizing
Yes,
digitizing
right.
the sample. So I will get back to what Leslie mentioned earlier. In fact, it is in this domain where regulation varies from different regions and different countries, and this is where
Just 1 second, Jayant. Just
yeah,
one quick question. What is the accuracy level? Because in
yeah,
radiology, the accuracy levels seem to be matching that of humans, or even
correct.
Yeah,
excelling it in certain cases.
right.
You said that this is kind of an unproven area. A lot of testing is happening.
So what we did, I mean, I can quote the numbers from our US FDA clinical studies that we did, and this was done
Hmm.
across 4 sites with 800 plus samples. So we saw that each sample was actually reviewed by two pathologists at different sites so that we know what is the inter-observer variability as well. So what we saw that is that the accuracy of the AI is at least as much or better than the inter-observer variability between the two pathologists.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, Jayant.
No, okay. No, I'm trying to
You're
get to
talking
that.
about the regulations.
Yeah, I was talking about the regulation. So help us understand, the regulations of AI-powered pathology reports and understanding in different parts of the world.
Sure.
Um,
I think most of the world kind of agrees on this right now is that AI reports should not be directly sent to the patients, at least
right.
as far as pathology is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It should be reviewed by a pathologist or a qualified, whoever is qualified to review
Professionals.
in a given geography. And we kind of strictly follow that. And we also believe that this should be an assistant to the pathologist to make her more efficient rather than a replacement for her. Because I strictly don't believe that AI will ever be able to gain the kind of insights that a senior pathologist has,
Mm-hmm.
especially. Okay. And in terms of regulations also, and how do we get the regulatory clearances?
Yeah.
The regulators don't really care how things work at the back end.
Mm-hmm.
How you have trained your model, that's up to you. What they do care about is that what is the evidence that you are showing that it is working?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is why the comparison with the manual review becomes that much more important.
But Tata, in
But
that
Yeah.
context, one thing which I wanted to get clarified, and since we always, when we speak about responsible or explainable AI, we
Yes.
say that we need to know how the models work. You're saying that
Yes.
right.
here the regulators are not keen on.
Right. Okay. So that's a very good question, Leslie. Let me explain to it. So explain a little more on it. Is that our AI is explainable. So in the sense that if the AI says that, okay, this is a sample of blood cancer, okay,
Mm.
then we have visual evidence to show to the pathologist, okay, that these are the cells we believe are cancerous, which should not be there in a normal sample, and you should look at them. The
Mm.
pathologist may agree with our suggestion, they may not agree with our suggestion, but so the AI itself is explainable, and everything that the AI predicts is backed up by visual evidence, which
Okay.
kind of makes the job of the pathologist easier because it is not a black box that they have to rely on. It's a
Mm.
completely white box. What I meant was basically how you have built the model, which version of LLM or CNN that you have used. That is something the regulators don't care about. They
Okay.
do care about what comes out of the model with
No.
the visual evidence.
But in case of Europe, which is GDPR led, even
Hmm.
digitizing the sample and the data collection itself is fairly privacy and consent led, right? So that
Right.
also the regulators sort of care about
Yes.
fairly
So we
strictly.
do. We have to basically follow if the AI is cloud hosted.
Mm-hmm.
We have to follow the GDPR regulations in terms of geographical boundaries and all that.
Right.
And the good thing is that in our solution, we do not take any patient identifiable information at all. We don't take
Okay.
name, we don't take any other
No
information.
PIIs. Okay.
Exactly. No PIIs. Because
Mm-hmm.
we only deal with images. I don't really care what the patient is whom the sample came from. And the other thing is that what we also truly believe is that the AI should move to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
is the best way to address privacy concerns, that nothing gets shared out of this. The AI runs in the box that you have, and you get the reports on the box. If you choose to host it somewhere, that's your choice. But
Okay.
the AI does not dictate that you have a cloud on this. So that is the direction that we are moving into, completely
Okay.
edge.
Okay. So that would make your solution to be fairly light if it needs to be edge processed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I was just asking. I mean, you were talking about the. I think last time when I was having this conversation with Tata, said the sample preparation actually goes to a series of steps involving chemicals, involving different types of distilled water, buffer water. He was giving me. He was absolutely overloading me with a lot of data and like digitized data, like if of image net, etc., camera sensors. I would love to just very quickly in simple terms explain or the kind of complexity behind this to our viewers and listeners. That will really help them.
Right. Okay. So that's again a very good question, Leslie. And this is a problem I think many companies might face who depend on a certain image capture mechanism, on a fixed image capture mechanism. So if you look at, say, the common image data sets like ImageNet and all, ImageNet is pretty old now. It is kind of randomized by definition. The images come from thousands of different camera makes, models, phones, SLRs, point and shoots, and everything, right?
Right.
So the variability that comes from the camera sensors is kind of built into the data set itself. But for a company which is building its own hardware and its own image acquisition system, if you train the model on a particular camera, our experience tells us that if the camera changes, the AI model can kind of falter a bit. You need to kind of proactively build that robustness into the model. But that is one that is kind of still in our control. That is something we can control internally and retrain the model with the new camera sensor and everything. But the biggest amount of variability that comes from is the sample itself. Now, biological samples, I mean, tissue samples or blood samples need to be processed before being examined with a microscope. And that process is called staining. Basically, you add chemicals to a series of chemicals to the process, which kind of colors the different cells and tissues into different colors. And that is how the pathologists identify, okay, that this is a cell and that is something else, and so on and so forth. And this staining process has a huge amount of variation going from one laboratory to another. Yes, and because every pathologist has their own choice of, okay, I want the color to look like this.
So
I
it's not
want
standardized?
It's not standardized. It's not, and it is variable. Some people use automated machinery for preparing the samples. Most labs in India would be using manual processes, and the process, even if it is standardized, the chemicals might vary from batch to batch. The distilled water pH might vary from batch to batch, and so on. And these all can lead to different colors
Yeah,
and everything.
for an AI solution like yours, that would be a huge fragmentation, wouldn't it?
That is a huge fragmentation, truly, because that is when we started. We partnered with a couple of large laboratories and we built our first model, which was kind of with some Jugaad data, captured data, and it was like performing very well. But when we took it to the third laboratory, it kind of failed because that had a different staining protocol altogether.
Right.
So that is where I think a lot of AI companies may falter, AI pathology companies. And we actually are good for us is that we realize that problem early on in the process, and we have always ensured that we have a lot of variation in the data coming from. And that is one of the advantages of being in India, so that you can actually get to see the most beautiful processes to the worst possible process right within probably a 10-kilometer radius from where our office is, labs.
If only Leslie and I get a dime every time an AI solution developer says that about India, the range that you get in this country while developing your solution is not funny. Yeah.
But that is why, if you look at India, it is a hub for AI applications.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And because there are so many problems that need to be solved,
Yeah,
and
if you can solve
okay,
for this country and if you can get
then you
your
can
AI
solve it for
models
any country.
for anywhere in the
Yes.
Look at the
world.
kind of variables that you're addressing at this point in time. I'm just looking in the case of Tata or any other issue for that matter of fact. Look at the amount of variables. The range
Right.
of variables is so broad.
Right. Tata, in terms of AI-based diagnostics, or especially computer vision AI-based diagnostics, radiology we know is becoming fairly mainstream. The
Yes.
next that I know of is, diabetic retinopathy that
Yes.
Google
Yes.
has come forward, and few other
Mm.
companies are also, some startups as well. You guys work on pathology, but which are, can you enlighten us and our audience in terms of which are the different areas where a lot of advanced work in terms of AI assisted diagnostics, is happening in terms of really assisting the professionals and increasing their efficiency?
Radiology and ophthalmology are definitely two areas which are fairly advancing and advanced now.
Right.
Pathology is catching up.
Uh-huh.
I believe that cardiology also has a lot of scope. So
Okay.
if you can actually read an ECG, which many people can't, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in an emergency room, that can definitely help a lot of patients.
Okay. Okay. And a lot of
Right.
work is happening in that space around the world.
At least I know a few companies. One of them is I know the founders as well. It's a company called Tricog. They
Okay.
are into AI assisted cardiology. I
Right.
think they're flipped to Singapore now, but they were an India company earlier, as
Right.
far as I
Tricog is an
remember.
Indian company. Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
one. And apart from that, I may not be intimately familiar with other areas, but remote patient monitoring is something which can actually has a lot of potential for AI. So
Okay.
I'm talking about the ICUs.
Right.
And
Right.
ICUs, you'll often hear doctors say that, okay, you look at the numbers, you don't look at the patient.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
there's a lot of sensor data which is coming
True.
out. You have
True.
those patient monitors. I'm sure that is a field which is ripe for innovation in AI, in
Yeah.
basically flagging and alerting and all that.
And
And that can
especially
actually help a lot of, save a lot of lives, maybe.
true. And especially post COVID, the number of home ICUs have also
Mhm.
increased. So
Right.
now you get modular home ICUs that people can set up in their houses and bedrooms and living rooms for their ailing family members.
Hmm.
And they all have these sensors and remote, remote, I won't say diagnostics, but remote assistance in
Yes.
real time with
Right.
the doctors. So I think
Correct.
that's one area where, in terms of the sample and in terms of the business and industry itself, has grown post COVID.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of the business and the markets kind of thing, I know that you cater mostly to the US market rather than the.
Not really, Leslie. We are an Indian company, so we definitely started in India.
Yeah.
But if you look at the diagnostic spend in India compared to the rest of the world, India, in spite of being kind of home to 1/6 or 1/7 of humanity, our diagnostic spend is well below that. I mean, it's a single digit percentage compared to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that for a diagnostic company or a medtech company to really grow, at least initially, the foreign markets are the targets. We are now in the process of basically getting into Europe, the US, and we already have some footprints in Southeast Asia, North Africa, Middle East, and so on.
And how do you compare with like the larger companies? Because of course the cost of these machines would be much lower than what it would be for say comparable or the MNCs basically when we are talking about the Philips, the Siemens, the GEs,
Right.
Geez, yeah.
etc.
Yes. So, fortunately for us, our competition so far has only targeted the very large laboratory settings. And these actually number less than 30, 40,000 across the world. The
Mm-hmm.
remaining hundreds of thousands of laboratories are untouched by AI, so to say. And
Okay.
that is our initial target market. We'll obviously get into probably turf war with other MNCs at a later point of time.
Okay. And is your go-to-market also, because I'm privy to some of the go-to-market of radiology AI companies, typically all these big hospitals or the big diagnostic labs, they, their medical digital equipment providers are Philips and GE, and most of these startups, even the hospitals and the diagnostic labs, ask their big partners to partner with the smaller innovative companies with AI solutions. Is that the preferred go-to-market, or are you encouraged, or are you even appreciated to go directly partner with some of these big hospitals and customers?
Okay, that's a very good question again, Jan. So there's a slight difference here because in case of radiology, the AI startup is not providing the hardware.
Right.
That is being provided by
Ah,
Philips or GE.
Fair enough.
But in our case, we are building the hardware as well. That said, there are medtech companies where our product can fill a gap in their portfolio.
Fair enough.
So we are actually partnered with one of the medtech majors in the diagnostic field. It's called Horiba Medical.
Okay.
It's a Japanese company, but presence in 160 plus countries, and they're a fairly large player in India as well. So
Right.
we are partnered with them, and they take the product to the customers.
Understood.
And we do have a direct sales team as well, but only for India, not for outside. In India, it obviously going through a larger player kind of gives you a added credibility. That definitely helps. But that said, we have also cracked deals on our own with large providers.
Okay.
Tata, before we conclude this podcast, a quick question on the kind of funding environment, just to understand, because I think you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have raised about 40 million till date.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, how easy is it to get funding for companies like yours, because it involves a lot of areas. I mean, it's obviously a growth area, but at the same time, many of these technologies are unproven, so it takes the gestation period could be a little higher than a normal kind of companies.
Yes.
And second is when do you? I mean, this is a kind of a tricky question. When do you see unicorns in this space?
Okay. Great questions both. So in terms of funding environment, AI kind of wins the eyeballs. Right. But then when people realize that this is something which has a gestation period, it has to go through multiple regulatory grilling before it can even reach the customer. An MVP can reach a customer and you figure out product market fit. That is when I think a lot of backing out happens, especially from the Indian VC community. But that said, I am really proud to have very very good supportive investors on my board. So I have been fortunate in that way, but I am sure there are a lot of companies who have not been as fortunate as I have. So I mean, I would just like to be thankful on that.
When will you see
Unicorn.
a unicorn?
MedTech unicorn.
MedTech unicorns, I would like to say within the next 3 years.
Nice.
3 to 4 years.
That's pretty heartening.
Yeah.
Jayanth,
if you look at it, there have already been one unicorn. I mean, you see.
Yeah, but not in your space. I mean, you have it in the
adjacent
general
space. I would say Molbio is an unicorn right now. Molbio is the Goa-based company. They are an unicorn. They are a unicorn.
But not in India, right?
No, they are an Indian company.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
That.
They raised, I think, last round they raised from Temasek, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
And they are a unicorn. Yes. But but they also had a very long gestation period, and they have gone through similar troubles as ours. So
Temasek has been very strong.
Kind of medtech company, like you have Niramai that is handling the cancer AI and cancer part of it.
Yeah. They are not AI though. Molbio is not AI.
Yeah.
They're more into infectious diseases.
So that's why I was talking about AI and this thing.
No, AI, none.
That's why I said, how did I miss this? I was just trying to wonder.
Okay, right.
I don't remember of any unicorn.
So I was talking about medtech.
No. So I was more about AI kind of AI powered ones, which are more in your space. So they're pretty interesting. Jayanth, any final words before we conclude?
No, I think this is very heartening to hear. I mean, I personally
subject very close to your heart also.
Yeah, I mean, 3.5 years across 3 different health tech startups. One of them, building a population health registry for the biggest tech company in the world. But to see this happening, is very heartening. And I know a lot of people in India very passionately working at the intersection of AI and AI and healthcare. And this, I think, what SigTuple has been able to pull off. Indian company, AI-based pathology, US patents, US FDA approvals. India as a initial go-to-market, but growing globally, I think is a very good testament, and and a lot of hope for Indian health tech entrepreneurs. Health tech is one area where India has a lot of passionate entrepreneurs. Okay, from
Yes.
both sides of the
Yes.
table.
It invokes a lot of passion in a lot of
Yes.
people. Good.
Yes. So this is actually a good poster boy story.
So,
Thanks,
viewers
Jayanth.
and
Thanks.
listeners, we had Tata give us a lowdown on what a SigTuple does. Of course, the best part was that he says that India will see a kind of AI-powered company like his becoming a unicorn within the next 3 years. So the positivity around this entire business model and the success of these business models is here to evidence. So these are no longer black boxes. If I were to say, now we know that we can expect a unicorn from this segment too. So Tata, thank you very much for your time. Wishing you all
Pleasure to be here.
in your endeavors, and we hope to call you again once there are more innovations that we can talk about in the field. And of course, AI and healthcare is always a subject that we require experts to weigh in on as far as our viewers and listeners are concerned. And Jayanth, welcome back. We missed you
Thanks.
last week. Good to see you
Thanks,
back,
Wesley.
and see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Tata. That was a great
Thank you.
conversation. Thank you.
Bye.